Okay, welcome to the September 17th meeting of the Full Design Review Board. We'll just get started right away. We seem to have enough members here for quorum. I need a motion to approve last month's minutes.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those Nick and Neil. Okay. Need a motion to approve, did I say agenda or minutes?
That was minutes.
That was the agenda.
Also moved.
Motion and a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any general members' comments this evening? Can everybody hear us okay? Sometimes these mics don't work as well as they should. Everybody can hear?
Is the board now full? We were told that an appeal had been put off because there was an open spot on the board.
We're interviewing a 9th member next week. What happened was that the appeal got put off because the 3 members on the panel that heard
I
it.
understand, I just didn't know.
That's why. Hopefully we'll have our 9th member. I guess the full board has to vote on the selection. That's probably October at the earliest.
So the first DRB meeting will be November.
So the first DRB meeting would be November. Yeah. Okay. Okay, the first item on the agenda is Baldwin Grove. Is anyone here from Baldwin Grove? Come on up, have a seat. If you could, you got a green light? You got a green light.
We have a green light. Hello, I'm Vicki Latham with Baldwin Grove Cluster. We had submitted an application to add architectural shingles to the approved roof materials in the community. With the approval of that application, we didn't realize that that would mean that the regular 3-tab shingles would no longer be approved. So we're appealing to have those also included in our approval for roofing material. So that's what's currently in the community.
Yeah, because your standard still says they can be there, but it says that if you're gonna redo your roof, you have to go to the new standards. You don't want that to happen anymore.
No, we want the owners to be able to have both.
Okay.
What they currently have to replace in kind, and if they want to upgrade to the 5-tab, to the architectural.
Okay. So everyone understand the question here, and since this is an appeal, we have to decide to grant the appeal. I guess that's new information because that's kind of it wasn't clear. I mean, it's new information. Everybody agree? I'll make a motion. Would we grant the appeal? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you all heard what the issue is. Does anyone have a question or a thought or
Well,
concern?
I would like to recommend they always use the or equal in case that particular vendor doesn't make that color, but some other vendor makes an identical or very similar color without tying their hands to say only one product
But it's
manufacturer.
not the color. I mean,
No, but it's, they've also specified a manufacturer.
That's true.
Okay.
Just a
Because my-
suggestion, but
you're
for
talking
their,
about
for
So
architecture.
should I
their
fill
things.
that, should I fill that right now to say that as well?
What does your wording say that you're doing?
I think it was very specific as the type of the manufactured brand that we could send in. It said
They've got a list of,
Menco.
that got approved. Basically, it just says the 3-tab shingles are to be removed on what got approved. And all we have to do is reinsert that, I think, without getting into anything else, because all the colors are still there. Okay. I'll make a motion that we allow the Baldwin Grove cluster to maintain the 3-tab shingle as an option for their re-roofing needs. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion?
Oh, I can't. Oh, I can't. Okay, the appeal, yes, second.
Charlie does, okay. There's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
You done?
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. Chapel Crossway.
Folks.
Hello.
Ken, Neil, Robert, how are you?
Good, good.
I'd like to hand out one thing that I didn't get to ahead of time. Let's split it. No, it's the same. So I'm here regarding the retaining wall around our home. Appeared back before the 3 panel members back on August 13th. We ultimately had an approval with 1 abstention, and according to your governing documents, I can be called back again, so I'm back again. The debate, as I recall it, was regarding the color and the materials being used. What I just passed around to you are photos of materials used in our development Ashley Court cluster. The one thing that I need to point out, if you look at the original picture, I had power washed our stone wall prior to, that was back in June actually. So it was very clean and I made a mistake. I should have left it dirty. If you see the top left-hand photo at this time, taken yesterday or today, it has already begun to discolor and match the coloring of those materials used around the cluster. Specifically, those materials are very similar throughout the cluster. 11628 was approved by the DRB about 10 years ago by a former owner named Rob Reese. Unfortunately, he doesn't have those documents. I don't know if Vern ever was able to obtain that approval. That was at 11628. I will tell you that the community loves the appearance of our home. It actually crosses over into 2 properties, 11625 and 11627. I am pleased that we have sold our home. We will miss Reston after 25 years, but we will close in the first part of October. And I would, the aesthetic appeal of the front of that house and the picture that you saw earlier, the one on our brochure, I think it would be a real shame and very disappointing to the owners to come in and have to take down something that's really as attractive as it is. So with that, I will answer any questions this time.
Okay, I think I can't remember who was on the panel when you came in last time.
It was Neil and Ken and yourself.
You and me and
Point-
Neil wasn't on the original.
Point of order, this is an appeal or this is a rehearing?
It's a
So
rehearing.
we're all voting tonight?
Yes,
Correct.
it wasn't Neil. I don't know.
Yeah, it was.
You
Yeah, it was
weren't on
Neil.
the
Oh,
panel.
yeah. Well, this was the original. This is what he's appealing.
He's not appealing.
Well, he's,
I don't remember your name, I'm sorry. Whatever. Okay, so I guess we had lengthy discussions that night, just for everybody that wasn't there. And I guess it is clear in the guidelines that this particular material is not allowed. And if we look at the guidelines, there's even a picture of something that looks very much like this. And I guess Ken and I both felt it was such a small infraction that we voted in favor of it, given the brick walk, the brick steps, everything else. There's a preponderance of this particular color. And the fact that it's only about 6-7 inches tall, anything under 4 inches, he doesn't even have to come talk to us. So that's the reason we both voted for it. Neil, let him speak for himself, but he voted against it because the guidelines are clear saying you can't use this material.
so I spoke against it because my panel has turned this kind of block down regularly. And I was substituting on this panel and was extremely surprised that it was allowing it. Not allowed, to me, is as definitive as the guidelines get. The guidelines allow interpretation on a lot of items, but on this particular item, there has been a long history of what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And to me, the guidelines are in place to give all of our sub-panels some framework for consistency as we apply the guidelines. If you look at the picture on the screen of what is not allowed, in all caps, not allowed, to me, it's exactly what we're looking at. Not the picture that was handed out here, but what was in the application. It's a uniform. It's not like any of the pictures on the supplemental handout that came around. They're entirely uniform in color and in size. And that's not allowed. To me, when the guidelines say not allowed, there's no latitude. Otherwise, we have no consistency between our applications. And I have to say, turning down existing built conditions is the nastiest part of sitting on this side of the table. It's no fun, but on the other hand, if we can't be consistent in our decisions, and not allowed, to me, doesn't have a whole lot of latitude. So I would, that's why I did, don't remember ever having referred something to the full board before. I appreciate that my colleagues don't think it's a significant infraction, but to me, it's clearly use of a not allowed material, and there's a long history on this board. If we would not have approved it, if it had come before us before it was built, we shouldn't be approving it after the fact. And I know I would not have approved this if it had come before the board. We would have asked the applicant to find a material that could have been similar, but with some variation, both in color and size, or stacked stone, or timber. This is, the guidelines have, I can think of two, modular blocks and above ground swimming pools. I think there's only two that I know of, there may be more, where this clear not allowed language is used. And, again, I never enjoy telling someone, tear it out. That's no good. But I don't see how we can be fair to the people that apply and get turned down if we start approving this on certain instances. It's tall enough to be reviewed, and it's not allowed.
Okay. Charlie, comments?
Question, was there a challenge by the cluster? Any,
No, it's a single-family detached house.
No, that's cluster, that's cluster townhome.
Oh, it is town, I'm
It's a
sorry.
townhome.
My mistake,
Yeah. So
No.
there, okay.
No, nobody challenged it.
And I wish to repeat that, again, 10 years ago, 11628 was approved. It is almost identical material. The tops are the same, it's the same color. The front is a little bit differently shaped, but that was approved, and I explained that to Vern. And I had hoped that Vern was going to do that research to come back, what was 10 years ago, it was approved by Mr. Rob Reese, who lived in the time. Additionally, the house has been sold twice, 11628, and no infractions were charged against those people for using the same material.
It's not the same material, I disagree.
Well, you can disagree, and I respect that, okay? But if I look at the pictures at 11628, the tops are the same as the retaining wall.
You've
The
said
only-
yourself, the wall itself is different.
It's got a little bit of an angle on the block, but you can barely see that. And the real discrepancy was the color. And the color is the exact same thing that was used at 11628. And I honor and respect the guidelines and your position, I really do.
Okay.
But if this had not been approved previously by this organization, then I would have an issue. I would understand that.
Okay, this is a question, do we have anything that shows 11628 got approved?
In fact, I asked for it several times, and I asked him to supply these photos in advance so that we could check on the approvals with the addresses, and we never received it until tonight.
No,
So-
I did provide the information in this photo right here. This was dated August 30th, and it says 11628 Chapel Crossway.
It was part of the package we got
Well,
last week.
all we had was the front stoop, not the retaining wall.
Yeah.
The front stoop is one.
They don't have a retaining wall. It was the same material.
The material is different for a retaining wall than it is for front stoop.
Well, it looks the same
Okay,
to
and if we
me.
can get back to this side of the table, Tony, Jeff, so.
Mr. Chairman, just from a legal perspective, I tend to agree with Neil that that document is pretty clear. And the only thing I want to caution this board is when you make exceptions in enforcing our documents, it does subject other cases to a potential challenge that you're making arbitrary decisions. So I would just caution the board on that.
Ken?
I was involved in the decision and I looked at our guidelines as purely that, guidelines, recommendations, and subject to our final judgment on the issue. I do recognize the language you're pointing out there, but I still think as long as, I'm not a lawyer and I don't intend to pretend to be one, but looking at the governing documents, I would look at it purely as that. It's a guideline that should be adhered to, but the reason for the DRB is for us to apply our best judgment to those guidelines, and I think we did. If there's a disagreement, what have you, if it goes a different way, I totally respect that, but I made it purely on my best judgment, looking at the guidelines purely as, how should I say, documented recommendations to the community.
Mike?
A couple questions. So we're just talking about the retaining wall, right? The stoop is not part of the application.
Correct.
Correct.
And then for these other properties that appear to have, similar color material, like 11630, 11630, these are all pertaining to existing stoops from what it looks like, not retaining walls.
That's correct.
Yeah, but those are really my only questions. And the only thing is, do we have to worry about the rest of the application? There were some other parts as part of the
I think he's
application.
only
This
talking
has just been the only part that's been pulled out. Okay, I didn't know if the whole application had to be reheard, so.
This is the only one outstanding.
Okay. That's all I have.
Bruce?
I have sat on different panels, and I know, I agree with Neil that in every instance that I've participated in, we have not accepted this retention. So I have a hard time within the framework that we're provided to see a distinction here. And if there's somebody that has a distinction here that would help, because the worst situation is the existing condition. But, so I don't see the same leeway for something, for this particular situation.
Okay. Nick?
Was there any discussion at the previous panel meeting about lowering it, of course, so that it would maybe not be subject to?
Yeah, yes, there was, and it's cemented in place.
Okay.
So you could do that, but it would destroy what you got.
Sure, try to grow the grass longer. My only thought is that, the stone that's out there is dissimilar from the E.P. Henry stone that's on these stoops, and I think it does have a different look, and I kind of get where Neil's coming from on that. They are different materials. So I'm not sure if I would agree that it's something that should move forward as is at this point.
Okay. Any other comments?
I just wanted to address Ken's comment about guidelines. I mean, the guidelines, as I was trying to say, are often guidelines in the sense that they leave a lot of latitude. Not allowed. I was on the board when we upped the language on that guideline. And I also want to make the point that the guidelines are a roadmap to what even we have purview over. It's a roadmap to what staff's allowed to review. It's a common document that we all use to apply the guidelines consistently and fairly. And it's just because they're called the design guidelines doesn't mean there aren't certain principles that are fairly absolutely applied in those instances. Again, such as what goes to staff, what goes to a full board, what goes to a panel. And in this case, what's not allowed. That's how I view it. And that's why we're here, is because I think the way you've looked at it is not correct, respectfully.
Understood. Respectfully accepted. Okay, any further discussion? Anyone have a motion they'd like to make?
I'd like to make the motion that we disapprove the retaining wall as not in conformance with design guidelines, which clearly state that use of uniform block of same size and color is not allowed.
motion, is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, let's raise your hands. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries, was that 5-2? Okay,
This is truly disappointing. You have a beautiful home, you have people buying it, and what we've gone through. It's no wonder the frustration, the people and the residents of this community. This is a beautiful home, and the buyers love it. So now I've got to take it down. It's just truly disappointing. I feel bad for I feel bad for the owners. But this beautiful home, my neighbor. It's just,
I feel like it's,
It's
it is-
difficult for us too, when people do before asking.
And if you were at the initial meeting, I apologize for
Well,
that.
no, I'm not,
You know,
I
that
didn't,
was-
I didn't even know if you did it, I'm just saying.
No, I
because
did
we
it. It
come
was my
across this
fault.
often.
It was my fault, okay? You know, one of the things that I did recommend is, I think in your newsletter, the DRB should be talking to the residents more frequently. We're hearing wonderful good things about the resident association, the community. That was my fault, you know, and I'm embarrassed that I did not take care of that.
You aren't the only one.
Huh?
You're not the first, probably
No,
nor
I
the
know,
last.
I know. It's just, it is so disappointing for these owners, this young couple and their baby, to have to now face this. And I do have one question. If they decide they don't want to take it down, can they deal with it when they sell it?
I mean, it'll be,
I mean,
it'll,
it's no violation that we follow it up, but eventually they will need to take care of it. They'll be
Okay.
given extra, additional time to do so, but they will need to take care of it.
And do I have any other recourse?
No.
I
This is the
cannot-
final source of
I
appeal.
can't go anywhere else.
this is it.
They can work with staff though to come up with a
It would have been,
variation of that.
and it would have been nice, by the way, if I was told that night that you had this recourse to come back before the full board. I was never notified of that. So, again, my 25-year resident, and this is as disappointing as anything. I love this community. I hate to leave it, but this is disappointing.
Yeah.
It's truly disappointing. And, sometimes rules and standards need to be adjusted. And I appreciate, Ken, and Robert, you're looking at it that way. Too many rules, sometimes rules need to be changed.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Thanks.
time.
North Shore Drive, I think, is next on the agenda.
Look at house.
Is that what we're doing? Oh,
It is, but
That's the address.
oh, right.
I'm Suzanne Welch with CPDC, and I have with me Megan Keel of Grimm & Parker, and I'm without a lawyer, so we're gonna give this a go. We're here for 4 clarifications, and remind me at the very end to give you an update on the public art, because we attended a meeting last night. But they're clarifications, because as you get into DDs and CDs, structural engineers give you comments, and there are other comments that come in, and it makes you need a clarification. We want to make sure we do this right. And the 4 areas are site lighting, the canopy design, we had an exterior color discontinued, and we're supposed to match similar, but we want to make sure that you agree what the color is. And then the 4th is a clarification on the retaining wall. So the first one is, or did you pass them out, or they passed out? So the first was, when we came in for the site lighting approval, the recommendation is that we consider, and I was looking at the approval letter, an architectural alternate. And I looked back over the hearing, and I saw a lot of sketching of what might be the architectural alternate. And we're hoping we're guessing it right, but we're coming back for an alternate. And that is on this, detail on the left side, and I'll let Megan describe the fixture to you.
Yeah, so there were several comments, one to look for more architectural fixture, another to consider a slimmer pole. And so the fixture that we're proposing, the global lighting fixture, we very much see it as an equal or even an upgrade to the approved RAB lighting. It would come in the same approved finish of a bronze. What we really like about this fixture, besides the look being a step up in style, it has one head, and so the previously approved fixture needed multiple heads to achieve the same look. So the ultimate output would be equal in this. If you look at the numbers, it says 26 watt, but really it would, that's for one head. And so many times in our photometrics, there were two heads. So you have to keep in mind, in this case, we only need one head. The previously approved fixture was a side mount on a 15-foot pole. This is a post top on a 13-foot pole with a 2-foot head, so the light source is equal in both fixtures. We also like the distribution. We can have 4 different types of distribution on this head, so it really allows us to keep the lighting levels appropriate for the site.
Do you want me to go through all 4 elements or stop at
You
each
guys
one?
will do one at a time?
Yeah, let's put one at,
Let's do one at a time.
Okay.
I make a motion, we approve the new light.
I'll second. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Nice selection.
Thank you, thank you. So the second is the canopy design. When we turn this over to the structural engineer, the top pick photo was the one that was approved. And when the structural engineer started designing it and designing the drainage for it, it looked, if you were standing inside the property, it looked like you had a football team out in front of you. They were just broad. They were built broad because the canopy was flat and all the drainage had to go through down each column. And we asked them if there could be a slight, not a flared, but a very subtle sloping back to where the drains could be, and we could lighten up the canopy. And you see in the image below, there is a brick element, and for seniors, it would be right at your hand. And then from that on, it's a column. It's a column right there.
A column, yep, and where, instead of bringing the brick all the way up, we're terminating it with a precast top, which we feel
Right.
is a
And
nice thing.
we were also asked to correct the name and the font, which we found that we had 2 different things in our presentation before, so it is now corrected on here with the proper name of the font. So for us, it gives a lighter look from the inside. We're trying to make it airy and it just felt to me like you were inside and staring out through what were they, about 3 feet by 1 foot or something? They were very
Correct,
big.
and
12
we
of them.
reduced the number of columns as well in this effort.
What's the material of the column once you get above the brick?
The column, it's a painted steel.
Steel,
It is
The bronze column.
Correct.
the bronze.
And just to clarify, the roof, it is sloping, but it's a flat roof for all intents and purposes. It's 1/4 inch per foot. It's perceived as a flat roof.
Anyone have any questions about this?
I just wanted to ask what the coping is on the stone part at the base. I can't,
Oh, yeah, it's a precast.
so the darker part there that we're looking at,
Correct.
so sometimes that's the part that can look a little not nice, so just pay attention. You know what I mean? I mean,
Fits correctly around.
yeah, I mean, like a lot of the pre-manufactured copings for these, fake stones don't always look so great.
So it will need to match. Okay, that's fine. Match the brick.
Mike?
The only question I had is that the color of the paint isn't really specified. You had mentioned the bronze. In the rendering, it appears to be a different color than like the bollards, which is a bronze. So I would just ask what color do you expect it to be?
Yeah, I mean, we can clarify for that to be bronze to match
I-
everything. I think that would be the
I
most
wasn't giving it,
consistent
I
look.
don't know one way or the other. I didn't know what you guys were thinking there, because I know we were looking at color schemes elsewhere, so I didn't know if you had,
Yeah.
it looks like it's kind of like a grayish, so I didn't know if you had that color somewhere else.
No, yeah, that
And
is
you
just
kind
a,
of had plans
It's a
somewhere.
red
it's
model.
just
It's
the
just
quality
like
of the
reflecting
rendering.
off of-
It would be drawn to match
Okay.
the exterior lighting, windows, all of our elements on the facade.
And are they circular or square?
They are circular.
Any other questions? I'll make a motion, we approve the revisions to the canopy and the columns with the comments that we made, the bronze color to match the cap, a suitable color. There's a motion and a second, is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay,
All right, thank you. The third is that there's, and I'll turn this over to Megan, there was a discontinued color of the three approved colors, and before we proceeded, we wanted to make sure how you know, what would be the approved substitute. And since we were coming back here for the other items, we figured we would come back to this item. So the discontinued color was the sailcloth, the one in the upper right-hand corner.
So, everything else in our exterior would remain with the exception of this one color. We're going with the same brick, the same other two colors. And then in reviewing the entire line of colors with Hardy, this cobblestone color is the most similar to match the brick and the other colors of the site. So we, correct.
The one that's a proposed substitute. And this was the sailcloth, which is
which
discontinued.
one's the one that's proposed?
This is discontinued
That's
and
gone.
this is the proposed.
Is that the cobblestone?
Correct.
Because the thing up there makes it look darker and whatever, but,
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. That's why we wanted
Yeah.
you to see them in person.
okay.
And
And that's the only change, it's just sailcloth to cobblestone?
correct.
Right, so there were two options on how to have, which is the accent.
Yeah, so we are proposing two options. As you can see, it's very, very similar in rendering. It's really important to look at the physical samples. In the first scenario, option one, we took the sailcloth and swapped it one for the cobblestone, which is a successful approach, but looking at the new three colors, we felt that the lighter, brighter color now was no longer that color. And so in the second option, we then swapped the cobblestone and the Navajo beige to have the vertical elements of the building be the cobblestone. So it just rearranged where the colors landed on the building just based on the way these three colors worked together slightly differently.
I'm gonna admit, I didn't quite follow it, and the renderings don't always help me. I just personally think the cobblestone's a better match to the brick. To me, the Navajo beige is a little creamy. So I just make that as a comment. I think it'll be fine, whatever you do.
Yeah, well, I mean, we think this is a positive. We think it goes with the
Yeah.
brick nicely and.
Yeah, I agree, I think it's a better color than the sailcloth.
Did you pick a grout color yet?
We have not, no.
Okay, so the only change we're looking at here is sailcloth to cobblestone. Okay, any other questions, comments?
I'll move we approve the change to cobblestone.
There's a motion, need a
Is it
second?
one?
So are you going to stick with option one or option two?
Excuse me.
That was a question also, correct?
Correct.
Either one.
I like option one better.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to tell because, they're pretty darn close.
It's very, very similar. We
Option
understand.
one- I like option one a little better too.
Yeah.
The cobblestone at the top.
Is that the burn?
Okay, so the motion includes option one, is there a second?
A second then.
There's a motion and a second for the color change with option one. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay,
And so
retaining wall.
So the last change, and let me walk you through the images that are on the fourth sheet. When we did our presentation before, I'm gonna get up and point at that screen.
Absolutely,
Is
yeah,
that
there's a
what you meant?
microphone over there, so make sure it's on.
Make sure you pick it up so they can hear that.
Okay, when we did, can you hear me?
Yeah.
When we did our PowerPoint, this image in our presentation before, this image was on the presentation. And insert there was on the presentation. So both of those were on the presentation. As we got through the design, we're now really with the structural engineer is designing the retaining wall. And we're not like, so I need to talk about two retaining walls. This is bearing camera, the one you really can't see from bearing camera, and it's you see it from the interior site. And then I want to talk about the one that's on North Shore. But as we got into the design, to me, I didn't like the one that was proposed at the top because it seemed to me like a solid gray block when you stood. If you were standing 50 feet, 100 feet from it, you'll look back and it will look like a big gray block. And we didn't like that. We liked something that had some more texture to it. And this is a precast product by Stone. Right. And it comes in either a natural or a stained. But we thought that the precast product had much more character to it than the one that was shown above.
So the original one you proposed had the board.
Yeah, we actually showed both of them, not realizing the impact of the two,
Okay.
and that they're two different, completely
Right, I
different
was not sure if you can
construction,
see the little thing up there.
construction elements.
The previous one was that, so the one they're now proposing, you have two different colors down there, one sort of a beige brown and the other one a gray.
Yeah, and actually to clarify, it's a natural concrete look for both of them. The quality of the photos are slightly different, but the larger image that you see would be the same natural color on both options.
And on this image, if I can interrupt, we interposed all the different approved bricks. So you could get like a concept of what they would look like with the approved bricks and colors.
Mm-hmm.
So is this like a veneered panel on the front of the concrete retaining wall? I mean, I assume a thick veneer, but
No, it's a precast block. It's
So they're
built in
individual
as a
blocks.
block, correct.
okay.
Do you happen to have like any spec on what size these are? I mean, there's some of these, is this picture I'm looking at, it looks like there's some big 48, 60-inch long pieces. I mean, does that
What's
sound
in the
correct?
spec?
When you say the spec, I believe it's a 24 square foot block size, but there's a variety that you can choose from during.
Because I guess my question is it all these individual, I'm assuming it's you're saying it's precast, so all these pieces are individually stacked at a distinct pattern? Or is it like there's one big block that has a kind of an imprint on it? Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, it is a block with an imprint on it. It's a precast.
24 by 24 with imprinted stack.
No, it's not.
It's bigger than 24 by
3 by 8.
Yeah, they're significantly bigger
Not inches.
from the picture.
Oh, correct.
You can see it in the
Yep.
big
Big
wall.
pieces, seven
You can kind of
grams.
see.
Look at the top of the wall in the large
Yeah,
photograph.
you
you've got.
can a little bit see if you look
You can
at sort
see
of the way
the-
the light is hitting.
I mean, I don't find it objectionable personally, but you can see it. I mean, it'll probably weather away where you wouldn't see it over time.
Do we have, in terms of color, do you all have a preference? You're showing a brown and a gray.
Yeah, so it's just the quality of the picture. It's a natural concrete finish, so the color would be a gray.
Yeah, the one above is the Tennessee foothills, right?
Correct, and that's an actual photograph of a wall, which is
That's
similar.
at Lynchburg.
So those two photographs are there for the texture differences,
For
right?
the pattern, right,
Or the
so,
pattern differences, so
Correct.
it's hard to even tell that there is a difference.
correct. It's just a little more variety
I
in
think maybe the
the stone
Tennessee
styles.
foothills looks a little more like rock around here. No.
During engineering, is there a height yet? Do you know if it's
Yeah,
gonna
the
be
heights of the heights that
It's
were,
compliant with our wall design.
but
No, I know, I'm just wondering, is this wall going to be 40 feet tall? Is it going to
No,
be 10
no,
feet
no,
tall?
it's,
Is it gonna be like,
it's the same height.
the tall oaks wall, or is it gonna be?
There's like 12 feet at the back there.
Well, there's one section where it's divided where it's 7, and then there's planting, and then
back.
there's 7, it steps back. It hasn't gotten any taller
tiers down to
than
2
was
feet.
approved.
And it shrinks down to nothing. I
Right,
think it was.
and also the advantage of the precast is it disrupts the vegetation in the space behind it as you construct it less than the formed concrete.
And certainly the rail would be bronze to match the rest of the site mounted on the top.
Okay, does anybody have any other questions? remember, she just said the railing at the top would be bronze to match all the other bronze, in case you didn't catch that. Okay, does anyone have a motion? I'll make a motion, we approve the Tennessee Foothills material for the retaining walls, and you're gonna get
On
around to the
Barron-
one
that's
at
the
the
Barron
front, on the
Cameron
Barron
retaining
Cameron
wall.
side. Okay, on the Barron Cameron side.
Right, so now I need to just,
Hold on, we gotta vote on this. Is there a second?
A second. And I'm fine that you're using a different material at the North Shore Drive wall.
okay,
And I've already seen it's brick, right?
right, that was our
But I just-
We're
question.
not talking about that one.
I know, but some people might think that they should be the same material, so let's have understood that before we vote on this one. Right?
Right,
And we're not gonna get brick in both cases,
no,
because that would be a massive amount of brick.
right,
And we also think brick looks better than this would look along North Shore Drive, probably, at least I do, but that's.
right. So that's why I was saying the wall along, connected to our building would be, we propose to be brick.
The same brick as the building,
Okay.
so it
There we
would
go.
just continue.
Everyone else understood that. Is there any, yeah,
I vote.
all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, thank you. So
Okay,
let
the
let
front
me just,
retaining wall,
That's the back wall.
right, so can I just tell you that we had 2 meetings with Public Art Reston, and we have conceptual approval from our meeting last night. I wanted to explain to you what they wanted us to do, because it would be they want the screen, the garage screen, to be continuous across the face of the terrace. It was originally just over the openings, they want it continuous, and it even wraps around and goes back, so it looks like it's an architectural support base for the terrace. I don't know if we have a terrace.
Old stuff, that's gonna take me a while to find it though.
Are you gonna bring that back for approval, or?
That's my question is, if Public Art Reston tells me that's what they want.
That's exactly.
We still need to
Right,
approve it.
Just right on that
Yeah.
application.
We still need to approve it.
Okay. It would be wrapping from that corner all the way to this corner. The same screen, just the same screen.
The same screen we approved before.
The same
There was
screen
one
you
with the
approved,
tree
which
pattern,
I
or
have sitting
which-
back in the corner.
We
yes.
never want to be in disagreement with public art folks, but on the other hand, we approved something different, and this is a revision. It seems to me it does have to come through us.
Okay, I just didn't know and they didn't know.
Have they seen what they've asked for, or they they imagine it'll be?
I brought it last night,
So there was a picture.
yes.
So it's the same screen, it's just
I have a
going
picture.
longer.
Can you, well,
But I didn't
it's
know
not part of
that.
the application tonight.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of the notification either, so if you've got to vote on it, we can't do it tonight, but you
Okay.
could suggest maybe a lower level.
I don't see how we can not vote on it.
It wasn't part of their original application, therefore it wasn't part of the notification that went out to everyone either.
No, I mean,
All
in general.
Oh, yeah, I'd agree, but maybe not at full board, maybe you can
So
make it a little
we should
easier.
probably defer this since it wasn't part of the notification.
That's entirely up to you to decide how you want to deal with it.
So we got the brick wall still.
Well, you have a brick wall with the architectural screen over the openings.
But I'm talking about the retaining wall. Did we vote on that? I'm sorry.
No,
No.
I'm sorry, I thought you did.
Make a motion to approve the brick retaining wall along North Shore Drive.
Second.
Is the
Any
brick to
further-
match the building?
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the screen thing was not part of the application, it wasn't notified, so
Right, because I didn't know till had the meeting last night what they
you
wanted to
had
do.
24 hours.
Go to bed.
Okay, we're done?
So I need to come back to the
We'll have
full
to
board.
see it,
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay.
That'll go on late
Yeah,
construction anyhow.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're gonna get this job done.
Okay, Tall Oaks,
I can't scroll.
evening.
Hello. Looks like we're getting more drawings.
Yeah, I printed out the presentation.
Oh, okay.
It won't take long.
Do you wanna, I'm gonna keep this, and you just tell me when to move forward.
I can do it if you want.
Well, I got a lot of extra other stuff in
Oh,
here, so
okay.
it might be easier if I just hold on to it.
That's fine. We can always just work through the package too when you find the page. Kind of how we did it. So we have a few things
Thank you, my dear.
This is stapled.
for conversation. I guess based off the previous application, we should just take them one at a time.
Yeah,
So,
this
do the
way
votes.
these get passed out, so you have everyone's attention.
Yeah, we will get the handout here.
Yeah.
Got it right here. That's all I need is
Too confusing, it's clear.
pull the statement.
Like everybody's got it?
Yes, sir.
Again,
We're good.
Mike Ames with Stanley Martin Homes, the owner of Tall Oaks Village Center. As promised, last time I was here, I was gonna come back.
And here you are.
With the playground stuff. So a little previous history on the playground. It was designed by a landscape architect during the initial approval for the site. It's very pretty. The aspects of the request was to make a more natural feel to the playground. Some of the renderings that you guys saw back then were, especially of the top lot itself, were of bright colors. The request from this board was to make those colors more muted to fit in with the natural play fixtures that are around the area. So what we came to discover was the age-old rule of space and safety. When we took this to the designer who actually manufactures and designs our playgrounds, he kind of chuckled a little bit because he said, I don't know how you fit all that stuff in that little area. So we went through several months of going back and forth, trying to get a design that mirrored the approval as much as possible, but still maintained the safety requirements as required by OSHA and the federal, I forgot the acronym that he uses for his playground safety space, but every aspect of the playground has to have a space, as a safe for them to fall and those kind of things. So the first page that you have is obviously the previous approval. I want to point out that we're not changing landscape, we're not changing hardscape. The putting green is staying exactly where it was. We're literally just modifying the internal workings of the playground itself to make it work. I called out, and obviously that drawing is black and white. It's very busy. So I tried to call out more specifically in color here for the board some of the specific items that we tried to maintain. Obviously the log balance, the log crawl, the chairs, the shade structures in the areas where we have seating and the tot lot itself. The fence stays the same. Obviously we've had the boulders and the rock climb. There's a special bridge that's actually shown to the left. And obviously the surface for the area is the play safe surface area that you guys approved. So I did the old true test where I kind of showed my kids the previous picture and the new picture and they didn't see the difference. So I figured I had at least close. But if you switch to the next one, Margo. So this is our proposed. Again, we kept the bridge, we've kept the log balance, all of the rock and the boulders are staying the same. We lost 2 boulders, actually. Yeah. Something that had to go, unfortunately, something had to go. The tot lot, the slide and the climb area got adjusted slightly. Kind of what I told you guys before was the one that they put in the previous approval didn't have any connection points for the actual structure that got built. So there was a slide and a rock wall, actual climb piece that didn't connect. They would have magically floated. So if Harry Potter was here, it might have been buildable, but unfortunately, I live in the world of engineering and we can't build things without supports. So this specific tot lot is extremely comparable to the one before. It actually has the added supports to make it functional. We kept the coverings in the same spot, so we put the covering over the main tot lot piece and the covering over the chairs and the benches. We did a new rendering of this area on the next page to kind of make it easier to see. There you go. So before, these were all the railing was green, bright green, almost like your cup, Margo. And a couple other things that were pretty bright. And we've gone through with the manufacturer and changed all those to more of an off brown to kind of match the wood in the log crawl and the wood for the boulders, because they're all, and I mean, it's all plastic, but the colors on the plastic to make it all match. The feel of this, I think, is kind of exactly what the board was shooting for in the beginning. And I feel like I kept a lot of, actually, I think I kept all of the larger aspects of the requirements. I just had to lose a couple rocks here and there. So I think with our area, they can find some rocks elsewhere. But I would like to ask if you guys would put this up for approval.
Okay, why don't we just talk about this? We got a couple other things here coming up, so. Anybody have any questions or comments to start, Mike?
Yeah, Mark, go back one. What are the things highlighted in yellow? I cannot read the rating and I couldn't tell what it was from the previous approval, but.
No, that's a retaining wall.
Oh, that's just a retaining wall? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tried to pull out, so the top, I mean, I can go through this if you guys, I mean, it's pretty detailed, but obviously it's hard to see.
Well, because it leads into my question, because I thought maybe that's what that was, but I realized that you had also taken, it looks like there was 2 benches in the previous approval, and then now those are gone. So I didn't know if you planned on having any seating for parents at all?
All of the benches, all of the seating, everything outside of this red line stays exactly as your previous approval was required. The only thing that changed outside of that was the shade structure. That's more square to fit inside, because this one particularly had to be structured from the back. As you can see from your renderings, it's kind of off to the side to allow me to actually put that foundation in.
And then my last question is, what is the shade structure? Like, what material is it?
It's a hard canvas.
So it's canvas,
and
it's
it's
not
all
plastic.
steel. Well, it's all steel, so the actual support structure is a pole. The rendering actually shows it.
Well, the
a
rendering,
little
it
better.
doesn't really show material.
So it's a metal support pole, almost like an umbrella, and it comes down to support poles that go down, and it gets like a steel rivet at each end point, and then that canopy is actually a canvas canopy.
Do you guys have to take that on and off during winter time?
It's all weather. All
Oh,
season.
it's gonna fade over time, or?
They assured me that it has a long lifespan.
Okay.
But our reserves obviously are in place to do those kind of things, so. that
Yeah, I
it
just was
does-
curious if it was more like a structure, like, the way this makes it look like, I was thinking, like, what we have in our pools, where it's kind of like, a fountain structure that has, you know, a solid.
Oh, the solid plastic.
More of a
That's
solid
just-
plastic, so I was trying to figure out more what exactly is it?
It's a canvas.
Okay. That's all I had.
Okay,
No question.
Bruce, nothing? Neil? Nick? Ken?
Nothing.
Just one, we had a previous playground that had labels on the shade structures. Do these have any vendor type manufacturer? This one, whatever brand that was, remember, it had the big words across it, which caused hardship with the neighbors, and they had to rotate them around so you couldn't see them from the street.
I mean, it'll have the manufacturer's brand on it. It'll have,
No,
Levi
these were
jeans
big
type.
letters.
No, it won't.
Okay.
No graphics.
Yeah.
Could members of the board fit through the log crawl tunnel if they tried?
That's an unfair question.
You don't have to answer.
I can answer that question.
We could get under that bridge, I think.
I wouldn't be able to get over the bridge, let's put it that way. Might be able to get under the bridge.
Okay, any further questions? I'll make a motion, we approve the new rendition of the playground.
Second, third.
There's a motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Yep. On to our next aspect. We as well met with the Reston Art Association. We had previous approval through them a couple months ago.
I like this, this is nice.
They, however, did not have a time to meet until yesterday, as you probably previously heard. We did present this to them. They're very happy with it. They had a couple suggestions that we will take into consideration that maybe I can pitch to the board to see if you guys can give your opinions on it. So maybe once it comes in, we can get approval through staff if it's acceptable. It's not a big change, I don't think, but I'll let you guys decide. So when we met with them previously, it was required of us to work with them to incorporate art into the community. Their idea was to focus mainly on the central green, which is at the front of the community, and the bus shelter. We had previously approved a bus shelter through the original application that we're now going to request a revision to. The bus shelter that you see in front of you is a standard Fairfax County Department of Transportation approved shelter. What we're going to do to it is paint the steel, and we're going to apply a graphic to the panes of glass that are around the bus shelter. Obviously, the graphic is as you see it. Their suggestion that we can call out right now is if you see the top of the bus shelter, it's just plain glass. They would like to see the leaves that you see on the far right also incorporated on the top of the glass, so that you feel like you're in a tree as opposed to just on it.
How can you tell if it's raining?
Well, I guess if you're under a tree, you wouldn't tell it's raining until it rains real first.
Yes, so do I.
That is their request. I don't think it's drastic of enough of a change from what you're seeing here to warrant me coming back, I hope. So I'd like to ask if we could include that in the approval.
I
A
just have
rendering of the
one quick
entire
comment.
area, I believe we went past it the previous one before. There you go.
That one, yeah.
So this is the central green. To your right is the Pisano's Pizza, and the main entrance to the community.
Right.
Everything is staying the same for your previous approvals for the hardscapes. The benches approved, landscaping approved. It's literally just the bus shelter.
I guess I just have a comment about, and I hate to be contrary to public art here, but I kind of get the feeling like doing the glass at the top is a little bit like putting wallpaper in a room and also putting it on the ceiling. And I think it's a little much. I mean, I think not doing that I would certainly vote for that.
Is
I'm
it
not gonna
going to cover the whole glass or just come up over part of the glass?
You're talking about the top, that their request?
Same
They
color
want
at
it to
all?
be all over, yes.
That'd be a bit much.
It was their suggestion, not their requirement,
Yeah.
They know more about it.
so.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
If the belief is it's not something the board wants here, we can approve it as is.
Any other comments on that? Charlie? Was that your
No.
comment?
No.
Okay. Ken? Okay. Neil?
You know, I like the bus shelter because I think it's a template for what could work in any neighborhood. Find an element, theme it like this. You know, it might not always be a tree canopy in other neighborhoods, and that's another reason why I wouldn't carry this over the top. Let the sun or the rain shine through the top, see what the weather's doing, give some sense of enclosure, and enjoy the art on the walls the way you've done it. I think it's a nice balance of utility with some art added. And I would approve it the way it is.
Bruce?
Just a clarification, and maybe I'm not seeing it in all sketches, but on the option 1 elevation, it has the name Tall Oaks. Is that what we're being asked to approve?
The bottom right corner there. Margot, can you go back one slide? There.
All Oaks? That would be there.
In case you didn't know what species of tree that was. in the picture.
It's a tall.
It's a tall.
Tall oak.
Tall oaks as opposed to taller oaks, which will come later.
Yeah, I assumed it was part of the graphic, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have
okay.
no problem with that.
Right, it's part of the graphic.
Part of the graphic.
My question is, the frame you have, so that you're painting it the slate gray? Aren't all of the elements in the rest of this, like on all the balconies and everything, all of dark bronze?
The copings and the window fixtures are, a musket bronze, yes, sir.
I just was curious where the slate gray came from, that's all.
I think, so we.
Because I don't really go with the playground, I don't really go with the buildings, I just was curious.
Yeah, we gave the color palette of Building K, which is to the left there of it, to our artist, and that side panel is a pearl gray. And I believe she didn't think it was enough of an accent to keep it with the coping. I think she wanted to make it blend in with the actual larger component of color in that townhome unit.
I have one other question. Most bus shelters have a bench. Do you plan on having a bench in this one? And if so, what would it look like and be made of? Yeah, if you get close to a microphone, please.
Actually, do you wouldn't mind going back to the one that showed the graphic on it as well? Well, you can kind of see it here.
Bench outline there.
There's a bench, yeah.
So this side elevation, you're actually looking, this panel here is actually this side of the shelter. So, the bench runs the length of the shelter, but it's only half the width of it, if that makes sense.
Plan calls out a 5-foot bench.
Yeah, I think you need an ADA spot.
Yeah, it has the ADA.
Yeah, that's, yeah, so what, I guess what she's kind of describing is you can't see the bench from the side.
Right.
Because it's there, but I see what you're saying it's not actually specifically drawn in the rendering.
Right, okay,
But there will have to be.
your
a
bench
bench.
is along the back wall and the ADA spot is to its
Yeah,
left.
the ADA is gonna be just a blank.
Because in the precedent images, there's like 3 different benches, 4 different benches, really. So, just, yeah.
In the precedent image?
In this image.
Oh,
You just
that's,
have your, there's just a
that's
bunch
the
of different
artist.
types of benches, so I just wasn't sure.
That's what the artist posted to show that board, where she was coming from.
Right.
So can you clarify a little bit more what this bench might look like? Is it gonna be a flat bench?
It
Or
would be if,
it'll be Victorian design?
This is something back to the specification of the bus shelter itself. So Mike mentioned this earlier, this bus shelter, specifically the shelter that we're proposing, is the Euro shelter. So it has a standard specification for the bench, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's shown on that, the detail for the.
And would it be the same color as the frame being painted?
Straight through it.
Perfect, yeah, that one,
This one here?
yes, ma'am. And
Would the
then
bench be the
Smaller
same
this
color
one,
as the
yeah.
frame
It doesn't show.
or the structure?
The bench would be the same color as the standard issue frame for the shelter.
Okay.
Which is
All right.
You know,
So the bench
if you
won't
want, if you want, well, I suggest you make a note in the, if you approve it. And what I can do is I can talk to Fairfax County Department of Transportation and ask them if we can actually use one of our benches inside of their bench as opposed to bolting on. I can see what they'll,
What's the difference? I'm not sure what the bench is now.
it would just be a flat rail that gets bolted into the structure. Be a bench seat like you would see in a,
Back up one second. Where do
In a
we
bus
end up
stop.
with the frame of the structure? Is it gonna be the slate gray or are we going to the bronze?
it'll stay the
It's the
gray.
gray.
It'll be the gray.
I just had a question, I don't have a problem with it, I just had a question.
Yeah.
I'm fine with, I think just the flat bench in the precedent image makes the most sense, in the top right.
Yeah.
I just think that matches the
That's-
structure and just,
Well, will that
I think that is what looks like is the approval, it doesn't look like there's any backs drawn in this plan or
Right.
anything, so.
And you don't wanna hide the art that they're gonna see.
Exactly, yeah, so I'm fine with that bench.
Will that be painted gray to match the frame?
I'm
Yes, it'll
assuming,
be
yeah.
painted
Yeah.
the same color.
All the framing
All
will
right,
be
so all we're
painted.
saying is the bench matches the frame. Other than that, and we want the ceiling to be clear.
The letters seem to conflict with the bench, just to say, the tall oaks.
Oh, that's a good point, the location of the lettering.
It pretty perfectly strikes right through the middle of them, if I imagine that right.
It's a good place for it.
Sure.
Unless they put the bench on the left side and put that's the ADA spot.
Yeah,
there
just
you
move
go.
the bench
Must
over to
be
the
an
left
architect.
and put the ADA spot in front of where it says
It's probably
tall.
not
I'm
allowed.
glad you came tonight just for that one.
Got it.
I'm sure
Yeah, back up
Fairfax
in-
counties,
I wouldn't have gotten
This footprint is pretty
pretty much.
Okay,
well
I think
defined.
everyone understands
Beat
what we're
that
talking
to
about
death.
here. I like it. We tried for years to get whoever, VDOT or whoever, come up with a Reston bus stop. And, because it's all on their property, there's one bus stop at Reston. Now there'll be two that are on Reston property. And that's, we tried putting Reston's tree on everything and nope, can't do it, nope. So I'm tickled by this. I think this is great. And then,
We can point to it.
yeah. Any other comments? I'll make a motion, we approve it with the clear ceiling, the bench possibly shifted to the left, matching the slate blue color, and the ADA thing in front of where it says Tall Oaks, so you can actually see where it says Tall Oaks.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? You understand what we're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next.
I see now why I couldn't find the schematic because I'm a page off. When you flip to the next page, it's, so you wanna do
Signs,
Signs are next.
the
it looks
signs
like.
or the,
the leasing signs come up first.
we can do that, we can do that. If you guys continue on until you get to the big printed one. The board previously approved, an application, to install, for sale and leasing signs. One in front of our entry feature at the corner of Wheelie and North Shore, and one, at the main entrance, at the entry feature behind the Pisano's Pizza. The great thing about a village center is there's multiple things to sell besides just commercial. So now that we have homes, we're requesting to have two signs, one for the commercial and one for the homes. They're both the same size as previously approved, continuing with the black and white request that this board approved last time, and in the same general location. So if you continue through, that's the best rendering I could put together real quick to kind of show you how they would look at the corner of Wheelie and North Shore. The next one would be at the next intersection for the community, behind the Pizzanos. Both of those entry features, just so you know, behind those will be destroyed, and rebuilt for the requirements that we're gonna talk about in the future. But as of now, that's why we shifted them off to the side, so we could work around them. The next picture should be the general locations. Nope, those are the signs on the windows. Okay, there's the general location. So just to give you a good idea from an aerial point of view, obviously to the top of the page is Wheelie Avenue, North Shore coming down through. The star on the far left was the one that we saw first, and the star at the bottom right is the one behind the Pizzanos Pizza.
So how long are we gonna be likely to look at these signs? Are they gonna be there for the next 3 years or something? Because if they are, they should be a little better than they are. But if they're only gonna be here the next 6 months,
They will not last 6 months. I can't speak for the commercial and how fast they'll lease. There's still 4 commercial spaces to lease. We currently lease one of them ourselves. So once we sell out, there'll be another one vacant for them. But for our community, we are projecting, a good 3-4 years of sales, being out there. We currently had a sign, out there that was more advanced, I guess. But, in keeping with the requirements for what you guys approved.
well, we didn't think we were gonna have 2 4x8 signs side by side when we approved the black and white one. It's a lot of black and white signage with a lot of different fonts and a lot of different checkerboards and frames and I just say that in the past, we've approved signs further up Wheelie to try to avoid all of this stuff. You know, there's the old monument sign. I don't know how quickly that's gonna disappear, but it's a pretty junked up corner with all this signage. And I happen to sit at that light a lot, so maybe that's why I'm particularly sensitive to it. It seems like a lot of information to get on one sign. That would be preferable. And I guess I'm wondering if something other than black might soften this just a little bit if we're gonna end up with all this signage. So that I jumped in with those comments.
Any other comments? Charlie?
No, I'm usually busy trying to stay alive when I drive through there, so I don't know that I've ever seen these signs. So sorry.
Theoretically, they're not there yet.
Pardon?
Theoretically, they're not there yet.
Oh, okay.
The one actually is, the one that says, the one with the van meter, that one's up, because that was a previous approval.
There are 2 there right now.
And there's 2 there now. Ours was put up beside the van meters, without their understanding that they needed to get approval through the board.
Yeah,
Okay. Ken?
yeah, I see the 2 as well, and, I agree, if they were short-term, fine, but this is gonna be a long-term fixture in the community. I'd like them to be, blending in with what the community is all about.
So just to say, in the past, when there've been leasing signs, they've been up in this area so that they're not
I don't,
right there into the intersection?
that's Reston Association property. The reason the signs are where they are is because that's my property.
Mhm.
Can we approve with a time limit?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Say
mean,
you come back in 18 months.
we could give them 6 months and they come back and we can review it. That's, I mean, I understand the need for the signs and they're,
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound, I don't know how this is going to sound, but,
You gotta sell the property.
without the signs, it's going to take longer to sell.
To
So,
conclude, I would like, if they're gonna be there, if you're gonna be using signage over the next 5 years, I'd like them to be more of the traditional community signage that we're accustomed to, but understanding your business concerns. Yeah, if you'd be, I'd say limit this to, 6 to 9 months with the intent of coming back with something that would be a little more permanent. But that's purely a comment. I'll see where this conversation goes.
so if the board could be amenable for just one point. We are going to, once we get the final approval on this next point of interest, after this one, we are going to pursue our permit set for our entry features. It's usually take about 3 months to get complete and get permits for. And it's probably gonna take me another 3 to 4 months to actually build what we have approved. So if you could give us at least that amount of time to get them built, get our marketing team to take a look at what the signs look like, because a lot of people can look at a picture and be all perfectly fine with it, but
If you're gonna put a more permanent monument up there, I would think even your marketing team would say we probably wanna do something a little more.
they want to do something that matches what's there.
Yeah,
So,
collaborative.
so right now, the black and white was fine because the sign behind it is literally just like this table. I mean, it's just,
So, enough of
And-
my comments.
Okay, Nick? Mike?
My only question was the timing. I mean, I just say we approve it with a time stipulation. I think 3 to 5 years is way too long because if you can let a retail space just stay empty like that, they'll just leave the sign up. I mean, you see them up and down by
Yes.
the Taco Bell and the McDonald's and everything where, so.
Bruce?
You know, I drive, like others drive by this every day. I don't know what we could do to make it more ugly. So I wouldn't approve these even temporarily.
I mean, I feel like we're weary and we're certainly aware that you're weary and, getting Van Meter and Stanley Martin to coordinate their signage, so that your names are in similar places on each sign. Instead of yours is at the top, theirs is at the bottom. Yours says Tall Oaks in big block letters, theirs says Tall Oaks Village Center. I mean, there's redundancy between these two signs. But this is a mess. And it's because they're two entities, each wanting their big signs out there. And I was lecturing Richard earlier about fatigue setting in, telling people no. It's hard telling people no, but I don't think it's approvable. I think they need to be speaking to each other. I think they need to be similar designed, and either you set the tone for Van Meter or Van Meter sets the tone for you, if you're gonna have two signs right side by side like this.
so Wendy's and McDonald's, same sign.
Yeah, and I'm a little confused by the next permanent sign, the whatever you call those things. Monument sign, thank you. When is that scheduled to happen?
So if the board approves, the renderings that we have, we would more than likely have a permit set, in 2 to 3 months. And then it would take us probably another 3 to 4 months to construct it, depending on the weather. It has a lot of polish, a lot of woods, a lot of things that, don't do too well with cold pours. So it could possibly end up being like an April May completion.
I guess I kind of agree with Neil that it's so much information on these signs, and a little graphic coordination would probably go a long ways. And I think I just kind of look at them, what do I see first? I see your sign screaming Tall Oaks, and then I see I lose the Stanley Martin, but I see the Van Meter, so it's kind of confusing. Margaret, can you go back to the black and white signs just a second?
Yeah, we can try to work with the other.
Who are you guys using as your sign company? Gable or AA, or do you know who you're using?
Our marketing team has their own group. I'd have to ask.
I just was curious, sometimes if you're using the same sign company, they might be able to
They do not.
They might be able to,
that for sure.
collaborate or something.
Okay,
So the Van Meter hasn't been to us at all, correct?
It has.
correct.
It has or has not?
I don't think it has.
It has.
One sign got approved, right?
One sign, yes.
Was that the Van Meter or yours?
That was the Van Meter one.
The Van Meter got approved.
But
I
it's
guess
expired.
If you're gonna add a second sign, then I guess all of our comments apply, that we'd like to see them
coordinate.
graphically coordinated a little bit more.
Just a few questions, if I could, just to get a feel on what you guys would look for when we come back. So each of these are 3 by 7. How big can one be when it's together?
So there is a guideline in our design guidelines for these signs, and historically, they had the rotated posts.
They have to be, right?
And that was the Reston look. We've kind of don't hold people to that so much anymore, but, I
If we
think,
do the
I think
V-
3 by 7, I think whatever it says, and I think 3 by 7 is about what I would imagine is right.
So all of this on one of these?
Well, ideally.
Yeah. Margo's looking up the sign
I
size.
mean, once the monument sign gets built, there's no way that there are gonna be 2 of these things out there,
Because,
in my mind.
well, the monument sign has nothing to do with our sales. It doesn't have any of our for sale sign. It's exactly what's gonna be there now. It's just an announcement of the cluster. Tall Oaks at Village Center.
But you don't really want these
Monument sign here.
It's not monument.
construction
it's
signs to
sales.
go on a nice new monument sign either.
We would want them
It's temporary.
probably before the monument, because
Saying commercial.
monuments don't help us sell our homes.
So
Yeah.
it may be slightly different.
I mean, if we can take down the monument, would that be more beneficial? I can demo the
So-
current monument as it is and just leave these 2 signs and have that monument built at the end?
We're just checking the guideline, I think,
So, take a copy of this home with you.
Yes, sir.
or it's all online.
It's online.
Yeah.
I mean, there are even pictures of double signs where you have the post shared between 2 signs. So you don't have 2 separate signs, it's only, and then I think, if you can both agree on the name at the top, Tall Oaks Village Center, and that's a band that's consistent between the signs, and put your company names in a similar look. I mean, I think it's gotta be coordinated, that's all. It really does. And
Do they have to be black and white per the code?
2 colors, I mean, if you don't wanna do black and white, I would say like, brown and white, dark green and white, dark blue and white.
Well, we're light blue and Van Meter's red, so.
2 colors.
Tasteful.
One of them is white.
Yeah.
4 by 8 looks like what we've allowed in the past.
Okay, let's move on here. Let's get a motion on this
I
one.
think I got
Make a motion
got
that
the
we
gist.
disapprove or defer the temporary signage and ask the applicant to come back with a coordinated package between Stanley Martin and Van Meter that complies with the commercial property design guidelines, copy attached.
Okay, you have to clarify, are we deferring or disapproving?
However you want to do it. I think it's a deferral.
I requested it.
Okay. Is there a second for the motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And 1 abstention over here. What else we got?
The easiest stuff is the hardest stuff.
Now for the monuments. That's the previous approval.
Yeah, we got to understand context on it.
Okay. This is the old one, so we'll start there. This is the previous approval, that the board approved, in 2017. The one request, well, I guess one condition of the approval was that the commercial tenant portion of the sign, be removed. So if you look at the top left picture, the portion that said for factory, Pisano's, that kind of stuff, you guys did not want it on there. So obviously Stanley Martin, Van Meter, those would not be on there either. It had the wood inlay, you approved all the materials, obviously, the size of the metal and the backlit. So this was all done, again, you guys probably very familiar with me saying this was done by somebody besides us. So if you go to the next one, we did our best to match the fonts as best we can. The sizes are exactly the same except for the one at the bottom. We actually removed the portion of the sign that said tenant. We didn't think it was your intent when you asked to remove the tenants that you wanted just a big blank piece of concrete left. So we took that away completely. It's still backlit. The size of the letters changed slightly when we put the previous approval into CAD. It didn't quite match up right. I think the labeling before might have been mislabeled with the 8 inches versus the 5 inches. So it actually fits more. So it looks the same, but it's actually 8-inch lettering. So we're just gonna make that clarification from the previous approval. The Tall Oaks Assisted Living, that's actually the font from them. That's their logo. The logo before was not theirs. It was close, but it was not their image. So we worked with them to actually incorporate their image and their font into it. So if you see the difference in the text between what they have and what the other entry features are, that's because it's a separate entity from the village center itself. It's its own sign. Everything's still the same. It's still a wood inlay, still polished concrete. I believe the only change was before it was blue. We put a blue tint to it, and it looked horrible to us. So we stuck with the more polished concrete look for this particular sign.
Okay. Any comments?
10 inches tall on the assisted living is too tall. It should be 8 inches. It shouldn't be taller than what the main village center itself sign is, which is 8 inches. Otherwise, I like it all. But I'd say the Tall Oaks assisted living should be 8 inches max.
If we shrink the size of the lettering, can we shrink the height of the sign? Because it gets ill proportioned. So we wanted to keep the proportion from the top of the wood to the top of the sign consistent with your approval. And the only way to do that was to keep it at 10. So if we can take the 5 foot and make it 4,
Whatever
6,
proportionally works.
you know, that
The letters are reducing 2 inches. I don't know, you may want to take 4 inches off the whole height or
that's
something.
what I was thinking.
I mean, it's a different font and it's their brand versus the center, so I don't know. I just don't want it to be quite as big as it is.
Okay, 8 inch, I'm fine with it. Again, they're not us, so.
I know this is kind of just being a little picky, but on the top right sign,
Yes, sir.
it bothers me that the E of village goes over onto the wood.
We tried, it bothered me to no end. We tried so hard to make that work while keeping with the same size. If we could make the wood smaller or the sign wider, I would love it, because it's twofold. It's an issue of, it just looks weird, how it falls off on the side. The second issue is, imagine when you come back and have to replace that wood, because as much as we want to lacquer that wood,
The wiring and
it's
everything.
gonna go. You got a wire that goes through it.
I mean, what if we let the sign be like 4.5 feet wide instead of 4 feet?
Is that enough?
All you're talking about is the E.
And reduce the wood a little bit at that also.
Or lose
And change the width of the wood.
The whole
the width of the
thing.
wood, make the width of the wood smaller. Yeah,
Six
make the whole
inches
thing
more
full.
width to everything. And then if you still need more, reduce the
Shrink
wood.
the wood
wood
so
a couple
that
inches
the
to
E
make
isn't
it-
hanging on
we
the
would
wood.
love that, because I would love to be able, so the way this is gonna be designed is the concrete is gonna go behind this wood, and the wood's gonna be depressed into it, right? And it's gonna have 3 or 4 bullet points on this.
Is
They're
this
gonna be
actual
inlaid in
oak,
and lacquered.
Or is it looks kind of like pine, just to say.
I don't know, it's,
Okay, I think you understand what we're saying.
yeah, but when we pull it out, that letter gets ripped off every single time.
Yeah, probably right.
And it's a really pain, so I appreciate that, thank you,
Okay.
making us have the ability to do that.
Any other questions, comments about the monument signs here? Okay, I'll make a motion, we approve the signs as presented with the the vertical Tall Oaks Village Center sign being widened to 4'6", and the width of the wood insert to be whatever is necessary to get the E completely on the
On
concrete.
the concrete, yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Just a question, and to shrink the tall.
I'll second it. I'll second
Oh,
for
and to
discussion.
shrink, I'm sorry, and the Tall Oaks sign is to shrink the letters of Tall Oaks Assisted Living sign to 8 inches. Okay,
Bruce.
and there was a second? Is
No,
there?
there's a comment.
Well, just to clarify, you're reducing the size of the tall oaks lettering and permitting the
And
proportions.
reduce the height of the sign, whatever proportion works. We suggested 4 inches. If the letters are getting 2 inches smaller, the sign can get, okay. Neil still has a second, is that still okay?
That's still okay.
Okay. There's a motion, and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any noes, abstentions? Okay.
So that's approved as commented, or approved and sent back to you, or?
No, it's approved.
It's approved. With those
We always
stipulations.
appreciate the final design when there's a change.
When we get the permits, then I'll
Yeah.
send it to you.
Taylor design, which hopefully works very included.
Okay. And then the final aspect, if you guys want to flip this page.
Your original.
Yeah, so we've, I'm sure you guys probably remember at 11 o'clock at night when we got to this point on the colors. The wall. So let me give you guys a little bit of more information on where we are. So we've gotten the final design on that structure, and CMU blocks just can't support it. So it will be stamped concrete. So we're going to purchase a formwork to make it match what's approved here. Your request was, we don't want to see it just concrete. So we've gone back and forth, and we've come up with our 2 selections. We had a couple selections before, but what I'd like to pass around, so these are actually painted copies. So this is the actual color. So when I gave you the original colors, my marketing team was really concerned about going either too light or too dark with a color that they were unfamiliar with, because too dark tends to end up looking sometimes purple, no matter what you do to it, and the too light ends up putting a green tint to it. And with those colors, they thought that was going to look atrocious. So these are the 2 colors that they've experienced in the past, and we paint on our foundations currently, that they're happy with both of these. So we can pass these around for more detail, but it's
still gonna be stamped concrete? It's just gonna be.
it's gonna be stamped, but it's gonna be painted. Yes.
Painted or dyed concrete?
It'll be painted, yes. So it'll be, so the darker one is the McKinney Stone 475, and the lighter one is the Kensington 102.
It looked like when you held it up a minute ago, it was highly reflective. I assume that would be flat.
It's flat, yes. It's the same that we paint
That's pretty
on
glossy thicker.
all of our foundations. And they're not gonna, it doesn't glare, trust me. Famous last words, right?
I go with the darker. I got painted foundation on my house a dark gray, just for that reason.
So we're happy with both. If we want to, I don't know if it's allowable, to approve both as an option for them to paint whichever one they want, or if we want to decide on one color, I'm more than happy to do both. I don't know what's easier for the board.
I think picking one color just makes it easier, that way staff knows what to go look for.
Okay. I picked this one.
Is that the darker of the two?
Is that the McKinney?
Was that one
For
called?
McKinney Stone.
I like, yeah.
I think this one does have that green tint, but they were trying to get away from it.
Yep.
I think it still has the green.
Still have it in there. And that's what there's one, that's why they went some lighter and some darker, because those they know when they actually get them on the wall, don't hit that green and don't hit that
Mike,
purple.
why don't you make a motion on that?
A motion to approve to paint the wall, the McKinney Stone color.
And the stamped concrete.
Oh, in
Stamped concrete.
In the stamped
painted
concrete.
with the-
It'll have
Do we know what that pattern looks like? Oh, the pattern's the match.
It's the, yeah, it's the
And
pattern.
approve the stamped concrete.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second.
Just clarify, it's not gonna have a gloss to it. Make that part of the motion, if you agree.
I agree.
It'll be flat. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Look at that. I think it's the first time I've been done before 9 o'clock.
Thank you so much.
Until next time.
Were you trying to get approved for the temporary signage? The temporary signage?
It would have been a part of the application, but it was.
That was just an issue that comes back some old leasing signs.
Gotcha, okay.
And that was what
Yeah, those were previously approved. They're just to be installed.
It's the same.
Thank you.
Doesn't have to be. It's a different thing. Yeah.
Always got that, sorry.
Yeah.
Although I didn't like the previous one.
Sure.
Upper Lake Drive, we finally got to you.
All right,
Still
still awake? Hanging in. Excuse the pre-Halloween costume here. I had to grow up in Florida where woods and water were better than internet. Well, I guess we didn't even have internet back then. iPhones or none of that stuff. So Walter Reed took a pound of flesh out of me today. Anyway. So John and Judy Newcomb, we were here about a month ago, and at the suggestion of Megan and Anna, I brought some pros from Dover so I don't confuse myself and you all with what I say. So I'd like to introduce from New Leaf Collaboration, John Burrows is the architect these are his design drawings. So we're showing those to you. Okay. And Christopher Chu, Chris is from Moss. He's got more invested in this project than we do. He's probably been working with us for like 2 years trying to get this. So he is here just to say, okay, let's go. And then David Cribbs is going to be the on-site project manager. He's also from us. So if I say something wrong between, I don't know the difference between a ridge line and an eve line, these guys will jump in and help me out there. All right, so battery's good. So you all sent, you approved what we'd already done on the stonework, the patio that we replaced the wood with. And in concept, you approved the major work, which is the second floor master bedroom addition, the sunroom, the siding, the color, that sort of thing. And there were 8 areas that you wanted us to do redesign considerations. So we're here to address those tonight. Okay, so I'll go through those, and if I'm out of order or you have questions about it, I can jump around here. Okay. Actually, I need my letter. Need it for now? Is that the one I sent back to you? Hard copy is always good. Yeah, okay, good. So here we go. The first one was ridge line and eve line detail to match the second floor of the house. And I confused y'all by saying that it was even. That's incorrect. It needs to be separate, and I'll let these folks jump in because of the current design drawings pick different heights. This is different. I'm looking for. The reason it was there is because of new insulation standards, that sort of thing. If y'all want to, yeah, we can expand on that. I'll find what I was going to talk to,
Okay, the roof over the addition is, it's a new, second floor addition over, the element on the left used to be a single story. So we just added a second floor to it and a roof. But the roof requires, the current code, needs an insulation heel, which bumps the eaves up a bit. It's also, that element is longer front to back, so that's why the ridge is higher than the joining ridge. And this seemed to be the best way to do that. Yeah.
That's a good observation.
Okay, don't want to go through all of the points, or?
If you want me to.
Yeah, that was
I mean,
a
that's
good-
kind of what I was thinking.
That was a good summary for the first word.
Okay, and then the second one is window heads align between windows in the addition, the windows in the addition align with the heads of the windows on the house. And we have readjusted those, and you can see particularly in this, if we can go to the back view, those now line up the way you asked for, I believe. Okay. Then, let's see, the sunroom supports to be built without the 45-degree braces. Those are required by Fairfax County standards. There was not a 10-foot, it's like 8 feet, but.
I think in the original drawing, they were drawn, the detail was 2 feet. But on the drawing, I think they were deeper. So that's been corrected on both drawings, so.
Okay.
The next one was the chimney stone surround being installed above the roof line. The DRB notes that if the chimney projects from the house wall, the stone must be installed on the entire chimney to the ground. I provided a couple photos, Mark, I don't know if you have those.
I passed them out, they're in your handout.
So I wanted to show you our neighbors. That's the one with the stone, and that's what we're trying to capture. Primarily because the only place you can see our ugly flue is from our backyard. Once you get out into the lake, and actually once the roof is on there, you'll only be able to see the top of it. And from the front of the house, you can't see any of the flue at all, so you won't be able to see the chimney whatsoever. So if we stone all the way down, that'd be great for a neighbor on one side, but we would prefer to just do the stone on the top so it looks good to us. And if we can't do that, we'll leave the ugly flue, but we would prefer not to.
Okay.
Okay. Next one was the basement foundation be clad in siding with improved color and material to match the house siding. We agree. The one problem with that is going to be, and I think this is existing, so if you go to the future, there it is, we put it in there. This T111's on regular, like, 2x4 kind of stuff. This is concrete, and it's charged, painted concrete. So to make it match, I mean, we'll bring the siding over, but it's not the same. There may be an issue with getting them to match up exactly. Our preference would be not to do it, but we will do that. That's what the board wanted.
Well, you're residing that whole part of the house, right? So you could add some
We're
fern strips or
residing
something.
everything.
You could add some fern strips or something on that foundation, so that way they don't line up or something to that effect. Right? I mean, you guys are redoing the whole.
No, he just means left to
You
right.
prefer the entire whole back of that side of the house, then
Right, but then you get.
windows, including everything.
Left to right is where it might stick out farther vertically. I think it's flat. So that's what he's saying, but it doesn't.
But that'll be under the porch, so it's really not gonna be noticeable if there's a step out to get under the concrete.
Right. Okay.
So siding isn't typically installed over the concrete.
Now, you're still showing the vertical lines between the addition and the existing. And you told us that that was of the same plane, or is it not of the same plane on the second
Not
floor?
quite on the same plane. The part on the right comes out, right, John?
Yes.
It's just like about 4 or 5 inches.
Right.
Okay, so there is a break in the side.
If you look at the plan,
Right
it's like
here.
that by 6
Yeah,
inches.
yeah.
So. It's not much.
Same with the front?
Yeah,
The front sticks out about, what, 3 or 4 feet.
Right,
5 feet, yeah.
because there's a porch.
Okay.
front porch.
All right, on to your shingles.
Okay, and the shingles, we agree, and as was written in the original drawings, they will match, as closely as possible. And if we can't get them to match, we'll replace all the shingles with asphalt.
Okay.
But we'll get them, they'll get them to match, they promise.
Do it kind of often.
Yeah, that's their job, so. All windows on the house either be replaced or be a close match to the approved color. We're replacing every single window, so.
Okay, you skipped over the one about the second floor windows in the addition lining up.
Oh, you're right, I did. Second floor windows
done
on
that,
the
so that's
front,
okay.
addition line. Okay, that was a major change.
Yeah.
You had to move walls interior to make that work.
Well, we had to redo the closet and bathroom, which is on that side, so that these would line up. But I think now it should be acceptable as far as balance goes.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
right, thank you, I missed that one. Yeah, that took quite a bit of work, so. Now, these guys are here, and after, what is it, over an hour and a half, they're saying, hey, we got through the Reston DRB for advertising, but I'm not so sure that they're gonna do any more homes in Reston after this.
Come on.
Hopefully.
We want a bigger sign.
Yeah, but I would like to thank them for coming tonight.
We appreciate that too.
Okay. And I think that I believe I've addressed all 8
Okay,
issues.
all right, on this side of the table, let's start with Mike. Comments, thoughts?
I know the clarification, the roof color, the metal part. So
Right.
the front porch is gonna be the red, and the sunroom is still called out as the red as well. Is that understanding of the design team as well? That it's the red and red?
Wait, say that again. It's colonial red on the front porch.
Yeah, and your drawing still call out colonial red on the sunroof. So I'm just trying to, is that still the plan? or-
Oh, no, I thought we had bronze, like a bronze color back there. I'm sorry, I must have missed that if that was the case.
Is that on the drawing?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, when you're
We
looking
didn't want
at,
colonial red in the back, we wanted.
yeah, when you're looking at drawing A6, it calls out standing seam metal roof color colonial red. So I just wanna make sure that there's coordination, that you make sure that bronze is what we're approving, just so you guys know.
Yes, and that's what we
Okay.
want.
Okay. That's all I have.
Good catch.
Bruce? Neil?
Well, I still don't like the knee braces. I mean, this is a big, nice house, and then it's got these cheap-looking knee braces. My understanding was that if it was less than 11 feet from the floor line to the grade, that it could be engineered and approved in Fairfax County without those.
Well, this was
Existing.
designed by an engineer who's very familiar
And
with
is that
Fairfax
all,
County.
is that all new, or is he
He's
working,
saying- I'm sorry,
is it all new, or is he working with existing?
it's all new.
I can't argue with a structural engineer that's not here, or ask him why that can't be done. We see it done on some projects, and then we have other projects where people come in and say, oh, it just can't happen. So I'm still confused about that, and that's my only sticking point. I mean, we're imaginably gonna approve this with the knee braces, but if you don't like them, I still think they can be gotten rid of. That's my opinion.
Well, I would propose hiding them with siding, or not siding, but something.
Anyway, that's my only comment.
Okay. All right, Nick?
Nothing to add. No, I feel the same way about the knee braces, but other than that,
Yeah, really.
I think it's fine. I think it's a good design.
I think, I was on the original panel, I think you've answered all the comments that we had back then. And I think it works, and I think it's fine. So I don't have any other comments. We've resolved all the issues we had.
My understanding is they already have the Fairfax County permitting, so hopefully we can beat the winter rains here. That'd be good.
Assuming we have some rain.
Yeah, really.
Careful what you wish for.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so,
know.
does anyone have a motion on this one? Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve it as presented this evening with the list of revisions that they've made since the last meeting be included in the letter of approval. So it's clear, so I don't have to go through and read it all again. Is there a second? Motion a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Lastly, I would just like to thank your professional staff, because without them, I wouldn't have been back here arguing.
Here. There you go. Thank you.
They're great.
But I would like to say that last meeting, I left here absolutely humiliated, and the way that you conducted yourselves was absolutely appalling. We spoke to various, have you seen the video of the last meeting on August 20th? It was terrible. We spoke to RA executives and had them look at this board meeting with us. And I have to tell you, for being the professionals that you say you are, and you in particular, Michael, for the kind of comments, very subjective, that you gave,
That's what I'm volunteering to do here.
Well, you can volunteer, but you can be professional.
This is what the problem's gonna be, is when the letter came out, we could address it. But when we left, everything was opinions and subjective. And what's gonna happen is, especially with all the construction that's about to happen in areas that the Reston Association doesn't cover, the DRB is gonna put themselves out of business, especially if you don't have some kind of recourse, like the gentleman asked earlier, where you could appeal to, say, the CEO, Hank, or somebody, or some other kind of.
Yeah, the governing documents were clear about that.
Right.
I mean, the issue there was that his application came to a panel, and then you can appeal it, and it comes here to the full board. And that's the end of it, so.
I know, but just like, we had a neighbor that replaced an ugly concrete sidewalk, went to sell their house, and they were gonna have to tear it out. Luckily, the DRB approved it. But, so that gentleman's gonna have to do the same thing, or the owner's gonna be stuck with it. So what that hurts is sales in Reston. And I don't wanna call them jokes, but they say you guys are the anti-sale committee, because people don't wanna do work in Reston, they don't wanna sell in Reston, and it really seems arbitrary. We owned a townhouse in Lake Winds. We had an antenna that was left up there. We took the antenna off, and there was still wiring. Nobody said anything when we bought it. When we went to sell it, the DRB told us to paint the black cable wire brown. That was their solution. We just took it off. I mean, so those are the kind of subjective things that hurt this organization's board.
Well,
Yeah,
and I
we'll
would
write
say
it down.
when we first purchased our home, our second home in Reston, there were some beautiful Bose speakers outside, gorgeous, beautiful Bose speakers. And the Reston Association told the owner, you're gonna have to take them out. Or you have to
Or paint
have
them
them,
brown.
or paint them
They were under
brown.
the deck. You couldn't
couldn't see them.
them.
And yet,
They're
what
under
did
the
she
deck.
do in
This
order
is
to
the house
get
in front.
approval? She
We
sprayed
do what we
them,
can.
painted them brown, and it was
The
approved.
biggest issue we have is communication to folks that you've heard several tonight came in that just went ahead and did stuff. And then it makes it really hard for us to react.
Yeah, but-
Like the gentleman you were referring to, he just did it without reading the guidelines, and it puts us in a bad spot. So, we're all trying to work together,
But I think like some of you have said, you have guidelines, you have guidelines. They're not rules, they're not hard, fast rules. And that is where I would ask you to be objective, use a little bit of common sense and stop with the subjectiveness. I just, last meeting was just terrible. So, thank you for listening.
You're welcome. We need to move on to our last item now. agenda says DRB process improvements. I think we've improved so much, I don't see any reason to discuss this further.
Not according to her.
But Anna probably has something to say.
Well, the last meeting, we talked about the planner meetings for next year, and we proposed a rotation of the panels. So we brought a calendar for you to look at, to look at the schedule for next year, see how we would rotate.
Just a question, if we get lucky and get a new member, is staff sufficiently recovered that we can get back to our normal schedule next year?
We've
I mean, three panels a month.
Yeah.
That's what I'm-
The schedule is a full
Yeah.
schedule.
That's how it's
Oh,
planned.
okay.
Yeah. And there's a vacant spot for whoever can be plugged right in.
Okay.
Yeah, they've got little lines in them where the panel would be the cluster standard panel. They're kind of hard to see,
Clever graphics.
but I didn't want to change the color of the
Okay.
block itself.
But basically, it would be safe, if January is the red panel, then February would be the green panel, and March would be the blue panel, and so on and so forth, which is what
And it sort of works out?
sort of,
Yeah, it sort of works out.
so we just.
Yeah, your concern was we'd have two in a row that would be, and looks like you've worked it out, since you don't have two in a row.
There's only a couple months where.
Yeah.
We're
they were
close,
closer
but not,
together, but
Yeah.
there's a-
yeah, that's,
Yeah, the one when I saw was July to August seemed like it.
I think I can be sufficiently recovered from New Year's to meet on the 7th.
Well, I feel like we'll be working well enough in advance that we'll probably be filling that block, that agenda
We're hoping, yeah.
way in advance of 2 weeks, so it's not gonna really be a big deal.
Okay.
So we just need to get your,
I like it. I like it.
And this is, by the way, the 2020 calendar. So I'll be floating that out to you for your approval via email. That's what Tony's
Okay.
suggestion is. So,
Okay, and everybody please respond so we can get an action on that, right?
we need unanimous approval. If we do it.
That's right.
Okay. All right,
And then,
no PowerPoint presentation?
No.
So smart.
I've had my fill for the year, so.
We love your presentations, Anna, you know that.
And the
Okay.
next item we wanted to put out was a suggestion for training for DRB and staff. A suggestion that was made by one of the vice chairs was to use the annual review of guidelines as topics for training.
Which aggrieved vice chair might that have been?
Gosh, let me think.
That would be the.
So we got a lot of, this is not gonna be a rehash of the second, item tonight, but we need to work together when we can as a board. I think that, subjectively, we all have our opinions and we can all have our opinions, but I increasingly get the sense that we're not familiar with the design guidelines, and yet we're charged with updating them every year.
Every year.
So I was thinking, let's try to use that process to have a conversation about, for instance, if something isn't really going to be not allowed, then let's change that in the guidelines. Let's just be consistent where we can. I mean, the last woman's comments about relaxing, who do you want to offend? The person that's currently in front of you or the person that's previously been in front of you? We have to somehow be somewhat consistent in our approach, maybe not our conclusion, but our approach to the design guidelines. And so if we can find the time to plow through them, which we're required to do by the governing documents, I think it would have the dual benefit of some team building. Gosh, I hate saying things like that. That sounds so,
Sounds horrible.
very
corporate.
corporate.
Yeah, I think the idea is that it combines, we got several you folks are newer, certainly newer than Neil and me, and it would just kind
God
of.
is newer than you.
True. But we thought it would be a good combination of training versus just general application of some of the guidelines, so we can discuss that, like solar panels, for example, or tree removals,
Cluster
or,
standards.
just stuff like that.
And we have new staff that I think would benefit from that.
And, yeah, and staff's included in this, and not just us, beating each other to death over this, so. What we were trying to find, is, and we'll look at this, is to, was it the 5th Tuesday, for example, which occurs every now and then, 3 of them next year, I think, or something, or find a time we can do it. You know, I'm up for a Saturday morning, but no one else will want to do Saturday morning.
But be by yourself.
Yeah.
Well, this year, because we've, eliminated a couple of meetings, if we wanted to do something this year, we had a couple of days, this year, a couple of Tuesdays that were open. And so that was November 19th, I believe, and December 10th. And those were potential days where we did not have a meeting scheduled. So it really would be kind of like we can email out a date, so
Oh, that's
that we can
2020.
calendars. But,
Anna is strongly urging this because she can't require anything.
but that's, if you wanted to at least start it this year,
Yeah.
those are 2 days where we do not have
Yeah.
meetings.
I think if you could put some of those dates together and float them out there and let's see who can attend.
Right.
I mean, does it make sense to have your normal Tuesday night just be one more Tuesday night you gotta come and we'll all just be us and staff sitting in this room or a nice restaurant with food and beverages, which I strongly support. And RA will pay for it, I'm sure.
Just to say, in years past, we've done this after the full board meetings, and that is so just tediously difficult to sit here at 9 o'clock.
No one would pay attention. Yeah, let's start right now and spend 2 hours discussing.
Yeah, drift off.
Yeah, really. So if we get some dates floated out there, let's see what we can work out and go from there. And if we luck out and get a new applicant, maybe this November, maybe we'd actually have our ninth member. Maybe.
So so the dates would work well, because if we do appoint a new member, then you can participate.
Yeah. So anyway, good. That makes sense to everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta do the guidelines anyway, so we might as well smash it into a training session as well. So. Okay?
I think it'll help some of our differences of opinions in panels.
Yeah.
But we seem to be getting a lot of,
That's
this panel.
That's part of the
this
idea.
panel never would have.
Yep, yeah, exactly. So does anyone feel like they have a motion to adjourn?
I think Tony has something to say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just thinking that going into that, it might be good if there was a subcommittee form, maybe one member from each panel to actually put together the presentation with staff as to what you're going to teach that night.
We could also bring in other people. We knew what the subject matter was, if we needed to. Arborists, for example, or, I don't know.
So my biggies have always been trees, lighting, fences, retaining walls. And maybe, I don't know, something else after that. But things that seem contrary. A lot of people move to Reston and are surprised that we don't want them putting up a board fence all around their backyard. Sometimes I think people get on this board and are surprised that that isn't what Reston does. Reston distinctives, lighting, tree removal, if we could go through some of those things that come up very often and talk about some of the, traditionally at least, ways that Reston has approached those, and then see if that's still in keeping with the way the guidelines are written, or if the guidelines need to be modified. Maybe we could, I'd be glad to meet to discuss what might be covered in a training session or a workshop.
And guidelines, I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, I'm looking at tree removal, retaining walls, signs is one that's interesting, solar panels.
Signs is a good one.
Is another one. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to meet with Neil, Ann, and Margot and see if we can put together an agenda that anybody else wants to join us. So we can then,
That's 2 panels, we need a third.
You need a third, but you can't have a quorum, so it can't be anyone else that's listening to it. It has to be.
we just folks getting together.
You're trying.
Well, no, they're just talking about having the 3 people get together to decide what the meeting's gonna be about.
Yeah, what
correct?
the
That's not
agenda's
a
gonna be.
quorum.
Well, 3 is fine.
Well, but they're not voting on
Here's the
anything.
problem.
We only got 2 so far, it's just Neil and me.
Yeah, they're not voting on anything.
And we won't agree on anything, we do a
That's
third.
A meeting is a meeting, And we have
So-
public.
Meeting to
Somebody
decide
from the
what you're
blue
gonna have as a
county?
meeting counts as a meeting.
I just, sorry,
It's a meeting.
there's one more person volunteer to join us.
When are we meeting? I'll volunteer for
Mike just volunteered, there we go, we're done, there you go.
It's in the bylaws.
Okay.
I think another thing that we may want to
All
talk
good
about
governance.
is the whole Fairfax County requirement issues. This comes up oftentimes.
Oh, like the braces and
But,
stuff
you
like
know,
that.
I mean, I think we want to be, considerate of what people are building in terms of what's required by the county, and we need to consider.
A couple of us
safety
can do
issues.
some research on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, as it was again tonight, tough to, I don't know.
Essentially, they need to design a big portal frame. And the thing is that they don't want to pay for a structural engineer to design it or install it that way. And if that's something that we want to go, we have to understand that people have to,
Know ahead of time. that-
yeah, and I don't know,
Land
I mean, obviously, we can't provide a structural standard detail that they could use, but
No, we don't do that.
that's essentially what needs to happen, so I don't know. But yeah, I mean, when you go down there and you want to say, hey, I want to build a deck, it's sitting right there on the worksheet. You gotta have these
Right,
if you're, and I don't even think it distinguishes height in their.
It does,
Yeah, it does.
1411, but it is a multi-span deck, so it has to have angled braces and tension support. Both. That's the problem. But it's neither here nor there.
Okay, we'll put that one on the list. Okay? Motion to adjourn, somebody?
Please, I so moved.
There's a motion to adjourn, and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Put that down as one.